Chair Schwartz, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we're ready when you're ready.
Great. Well, thank you. Good morning. My name is Emma Schwartz, and I'm chair of the Agency Operations Committee. It is 11:30 a.m., and I'd like to call the January 24th Agency Operations Committee meeting to order. Please be aware that this meeting is being broadcast via the internet. So before I begin, I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome those joining us via video conference and ask that they observe the following etiquette. Please state your name before you speak, mute your phone when not speaking, and keep background noise to a minimum. Members, when I call your name, please announce present. Welcome Wilson, Vice Chair.
Present.
Javed Anwar. Fred Farias.
Present.
Stacy Hawk.
Present.
Donna Williams.
Present.
Cage Sawyers, student member. And myself, Emma Schwartz. Please record in the minutes that we have a quorum. Agenda item 2 is approval of the minutes from the October 25th, 2023 Agency Operations Committee meeting. Do I have a motion for approval of the minutes?
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
I'm going to go by voices. So I think that was a motion by Mr. Wilson and a second by
Stacy.
Stacy. Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Okay, the motion passes. Agenda item 3 is public testimony. We do not have anyone registered to testify today, so we'll go on to the next item. Agenda item 4A is a report on grants and contracts. This item does not require any action. Mr. Anthony Infantini, Chief Financial Officer, will present this item to the committee and is available if you have any questions. Mr. Infantini?
Good morning.
Are there any questions?
Yeah. Are there any questions? I'm happy to answer.
Okay. Looks like we have no questions. Thank you so much. We will go ahead and move on to the next agenda item. Agenda item 5A is review of the fiscal year 2024 financial report to the board. This item also does not require any action. Mr. Infantini will present the item to the committee and be available for any questions. Mr. Infantini.
Hi, good morning. Anthony Infantini, Chief Financial Officer. It's my pleasure to present the financial report to y'all. So this report is the first 3 months of fiscal year 2024 that began in September. It's the first year of our 2024 to 25 biennium, so the budget largely aligns with what we adopted back in July. This is our first report that we generated through CAPS, which we launched for fiscal year 2024. So the report really focused on maintaining consistency with the information you're used to seeing to the extent possible. One item I do want to point out is in the reports on page 2 and 3, there's a new column there, which is for pre-encumbrances. And that's a term that's new in our CAP system. It just represents items that are flowing through our financial pipeline that have been requested but not officially obligated. So it's just another budgetary control we have that we didn't have before. But just want to present that just so you all are aware of kind of what that represents. Generally speaking, there's going to be fewer budget adjustments by PCA in the first year of a biennium. We are monitoring program needs to kind of be working as proactively as possible to help smooth the flow of financial transactions, especially given the changes in our systems that we are undertaking this year. And overall, there's no red flags in this report. There are some items with negative expenses, but that's pretty common at this point because what those really are refunds from prior year expenses, but they get deposited in our current year and they will be monitored and reallocated and kind of adjusted as the year goes on. Shifting forward to where there is a little more activity in our bonds and student loan activities, we have successfully reserved the volume cap for our upcoming bond issue to fund college access loans for the 2024 to 25 academic year. We're currently targeting a receipt of those funds this summer, but we are building in flexibility in the calendar to adjust that issuance as the conditions warrant. We're also actively looking at our loan demands and looking at the impact of core loans and the loan limits this year and help forecast the size for the next bond issue. And we should know more in the next couple of months as the spring semester information develops. Last bond meeting we did in the bond resolution, we talked about the interest rate environment and how the upward pressure on interest rates will have an impact on the student loan rates for this bond issue. And also how refunding any callable bonds that are already in the marketplace are probably unlikely given the interest rates that occurred. Just to keep everyone in the loop, in the last 3 months, there's been a big downward pressure on the 10-year treasury yield, which is pretty much the best benchmark we have for our student loan bonds. They've dropped almost 100 basis points. At a certain point, there's been some upward ticks recently, but it kind of shows how dynamic that environment is. So if it currently persists, as things look now, we will be able to kind of keep our loans at a pretty low level for the next academic year. But there's maybe a slight opportunity to do a refunding, but there's also a lot of compliance steps we need to take between now and then. So we can't really act too quickly on that. And there's also some indications from the Fed that there may be a rate cut in the next calendar year. There's questions about timing or when that will happen, but that could also have an impact with respect to any refunding that will occur. But so I just want to stress that, this dynamic environment is part of why, even though it looks very unlikely and still is somewhat unlikely that we'll do refundings, we do ask for that authority on our bond resolution just to help keep us as flexible as possible to keep the costs of these loans as low as we can. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
How do our current issuing of student loans rate compared to federal direct rates?
So we set those rates. We're slightly above, I think, generally speaking, on the plus rate. So they set their rate at a very fixed schedule. I want to say it's based on the May Treasury and then effective July. The rates that we set were based on our bond issuance. So they're in line. They're better than any other student loan, but it's I want to say depending on if it's which type of loan it is, like the spreads are a couple basis points to about 50 to 100.
A small spread.
Very small compared to others.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Infantini? No? Okay, great. Thank you very much, Mr. Infantini. We'll move on to the next item. Agenda item 6A is consideration and possible action to approve the updated internal audit charter. Mr. R.B. Gonzalez, Assistant Commissioner for Internal Audit and Compliance, will present this item and is available to answer questions. Mr. Gonzalez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Committee members, my name is R.B. Gonzalez, and I serve as the Assistant Commissioner for Internal Audit and Compliance. I am seeking your approval for our internal audit charter, which was last updated in January 2023. The internal audit charter is a formal document that defines the internal audit's activities, purpose, authority, and responsibility. It, number one, establishes the internal audit position within the organization, including the nature of the Assistant Commissioner for Internal Audit and Compliance's functional reporting relationship with the board and this committee. Two, it authorizes full and unfettered access to records, personnel, and physical properties to conduct the work that we do. And three, it defines the scope of internal audit activities. The charter reaffirms the board's commitment to our independence and the work that we do. Professional standards require the board approve the charter, and statute requires that we follow those standards. We updated the internal audit charter mainly to reflect current division leadership and add approval from this committee to solidify the working relationship and communication channels between internal audit, this committee, and the board. We also made superficial plain language updates to wording and adjusted formatting to match our agency's brand standards. It's largely the same as the charter you approved last year. This concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Are there any questions? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the updated internal audit charter?
So moved. Donna. Second.
Motion by Donna, second by, help me out.
Stacy.
Stacy. Great, thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed say no. And the motion passes. Agenda item 6B, numbers 1 through 3, are the auditor's update on the internal audit reports and activities. These items do not require any action. Mr. Gonzalez will present the item and is available to answer questions.
Thank you. Since October, internal audit started two projects. The audit on the Texas Research Incentive Program, or TRIP, is currently in field work. Our objective is to determine how our agency can enhance its processes to ensure higher education institutions comply with TRIP requirements related to donor funds. This project was on our fiscal year 24 plan. Second, we engaged in an advisory project with funding and resource planning related to the community college finance. What this means is that we are available to provide input and feedback related to risk and controls as we continue to build and improve how we implement House Bill 8. We do not expect a report from this particular engagement, and this is something that this project came up just having a conversation with Emily Cormier and doing what we can to help out in that particular area. We also reviewed previous recommendations related to gear documentation, and most programs we reviewed included all required documentation. We do not think this is a substantial or systemic issue. We also understand that our agency continues to close out these programs and will continue to monitor as needed. We are continuing our agency-wide objectives, processes, and risk management tool. That's kind of our enterprise risk management initiative that we're starting this year. We've assisted with external audits related to our financial statements and federal compliance. And we've spent some time recruiting and rounding out our internal audit team. And I'm happy to report that we have hired an internal audit director that starts on February 1st. His name is Edward Maldonado, and he has almost 15 years of state of Texas experience, with 10 of those years in internal audit. He is a veteran, a certified internal auditor, a certified information systems auditor, and a certified government accounting professional, and we're excited to have him. This concludes our internal audit update, and I'm available to answer any questions.
Sounds like a great addition to the team.
Does the community college finance audit function, is there a deliverable there that would be available for the next legislative session, or what is our goal?
Thank you, Member Wilson. This particular project is more of an advisory. We're there to help out if there's any, have some discussions about maybe possible structure on how our agency structures that function, or any policies or procedures. We're there to provide our input to see if there's any, give our input on maybe possible risks, or, given some ideas on controls that may work for what they're trying to do. There's no report, or there's no any, we're pretty much on standby if they need our help.
Yeah, it's not, so that's not specifically required, but we are working with the institutions and in close partnership with the Association of Community Colleges on the implementation and on multiple fronts. So we have to completely re-engineer how data comes into the agency and the kinds of tools we're providing. Arby and his team also are they're going to have to be engaged, especially with some of the smaller institutions. This is a pretty fundamental change.
Next session, we asked an update on how it's going.
And possibly in the interim too, I know that, as they're rolling around potential interim charges, they're going to want to track, they're going to want reports from us on how House Bill 8 is going, are the dollars getting out the door, and, where we might recommend some technical fixes in the next session.
Are there any training sessions available for rolling out this kind of monumental change?
So that's a great question, Ms. Schwartz. So the multiple training sessions. So it'd be the short answer. So as Dr. Troutman mentioned, so where we are conducting training sessions with institutions later this fall, we're going to roll out a new community college finance data tool that will. We may be able to demo for the board even at the April meeting, so that the colleges will have a better sense of here's the funding that they could expect, and then also, well, what if different indicators changed? How might that impact their funding? And so we'll have training for the institutions around the use of that tool. In addition, we've been working in close partnership with the Association of Community Colleges and Texas and National Philanthropies on supporting implementation of HB 8. So they are standing up some support, especially for the business officers, to enhance the modeling and projections that the colleges have available as they're doing their financial planning. So I alluded to with Mr. Wilson, like the biggest change, and we'll talk about it more tomorrow, is we're going to shift from a system where we've had a some certain appropriation, and really even in this year, the colleges have been funded on historical data. So that's pretty stable because we know what happened. Well, starting next year, they'll be funded on projections. And so so we'll flip the switch on a much more dynamic system, and they're going to have to budget differently. They're going to have to plan for different kinds of contingencies that could drive additional funding to the college, but they don't want to get out over their skis and then have to settle up, which could take multiple years to dig themselves out if they don't hit the performance targets. So that's a pretty fundamental change in how the system is going to work. And so there is going to be a lot of training and support available for the different college officials in different roles, especially around data and around the folks who are the chief financial officers.
Great, thank you. Are there any other questions for Mr. Gonzalez? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on to the next item. Agenda items 7A, 1 through 5 are the auditor's update on state and federal compliance monitoring reports and activities. These items do not require any action. Mr. Arby Gonzalez, Assistant Commissioner for Internal Audit and Compliance, and Mr. Paul Mayard, Assistant Director for Internal Audit and Compliance, will present this item and are available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chair Schwartz and members. Good morning. I think we're still under the wire for morning. For the state compliance monitoring portion, we completed 4 state compliance monitoring projects and a corrective action status report since our prior AOC meeting in October, and each of the reports is included in your materials. Next, I'd like to highlight 2 of these reports. First, the audit of tuition equalization grant at Jarvis Christian University. There's one observation related to non-compliance with cash management and disbursement requirements for the grant. We found that although the institution did disperse all of the TEG funds received from the coordinating board to eligible students, they did not disperse the funds in a timely manner. The institution indicated that they were unaware of the cash management and disbursement requirements and will update their policies and procedures to comply with guidelines and requirements for TEG funds. During this engagement, the institution conveyed their desire to have a better understanding of the institutional requirements in managing TEG funds and awarding their students. Second, I would like to touch briefly on the review of formula funding at the University of Houston. Although there were no additional observations resulting from our engagement, part of our review included follow-up regarding allegations of improper formula funding processes. We requested that the institution investigate and report on these allegations. As a result, the University of Houston Internal Audit Department issued a report confirming that during the COVID pandemic, some students owing their full balance were allowed to stay enrolled in their courses past the census dates without paying their tuition and fees. Additionally, the University of Houston Internal Audit Review identified control deficiencies and resultant errors in the reporting process. These control deficiencies led to the inclusion of students in the CBM 001 report that did not meet the criteria to be counted for formula funding. The University of Houston Internal Audit Review identified recommendations, and the institution is in the process of implementing these recommendations. We'll follow up with additional testing of the institution's certified student data for the next formula funding base year. Using this approach will allow us to review new data occurring after the institution implements recommendations from the University of Houston Internal Audit Department report. Next, with regard to federal compliance monitoring, we continue to make progress with federal grant subrecipient reviews for GEAR funding and Perkins funding. We're also beginning a review of institutional single audit reporting for FY23. I'd also like to thank all of our grant managers and finance team that handle federal funding. Their work in documenting processes and reports has helped tremendously. We have received positive feedback from our external auditors during their current federal single audit of federal ARPA grant funds, and I thank you for your diligent and hard work. That concludes my compliance monitoring update. Happy to address any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez and Mr. Mayor. Do you all have any questions, members? Okay, well, hearing none, we will move to the final agenda item, and that is the conclusion of our Agency Operations Committee meeting. The time is 11:50. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Second, Donna.
Okay, I didn't hear who made the motion.
Mr. Wilson.
Mr. Wilson, and the second by Donna. Although,
Mhm.
all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any against? If not, our meeting is concluded. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Okay. You got another board?